Hi everyone, my name is Marcus and you're watching the Reef Nerd YouTube channel. Today we've got a special guest, Sam Parker from Parker's Reef. So it's been a long time coming having guests on the Reef Nerd YouTube channel. I've received quite a large number of comments and questions from people out there saying, how come you don't go and look at other people's tanks and get more interaction on the channel? And I totally agree. And hopefully 2020 is going to be a year with a lot of special guests and a lot of content beyond my own fish tank. And so who better to start with than Sam Parker, who is actually one of the biggest inspirations for me in the hobby. I came across Parker's Reef well before I even bought this tank. And so it's a pleasure that you're here. And it's also really timely because there's a lot to talk about in the Australian reef scene right now.
Sure.
For those that don't know, Sam does more than just a YouTube channel and an amazing 6-foot tank in your living room,
yep.
Plus all the other tanks that you have.
Plus another half dozen tanks.
Yeah, exactly. Sam also has done frag days all around Australia. I think every city, even some of the smaller cities in Australia.
Yeah, we've done, in 2019 we did Melbourne, Sydney, Queensland, Newcastle, Perth. I think that's it. We also went up to Gosford up on the Central Coast. Technically not a frag day, but we had a reefing event there nonetheless.
Awesome. So I went to your event at Deer Park, which
Yeah.
I think was one of the first ones of last year.
That was the very first one, yeah. I was on leave at the time, and someone was asking, I think they were talking about reef stock, and people from Melbourne were saying, how come we never have reefing shows in Melbourne? I can't get to Sydney. And I had a look at the calendar and I went, yeah, I've got 2 weeks till I go back to work. Let's do a frag show. So I had a look at the calendar, picked a date, and messaged my good friend Dave at Deer Park and said, what are you doing at your store or the night of this date? He's like, nothing. Why would I be doing something? And I'm like, well, keep it free because I'm bringing a couple hundred people to your shop. And he sort of laughed, thinking I was joking at first. And I went, no, we're going to have a frag event there. So thankfully, Dave was actually open to the idea, and we worked through it, got some tanks set up, talked to a few people that could sell frags within 2 weeks, because it's not a lot of notice. And we did some pretty minimal advertising, and it was a pretty big success. I mean, for something that came together in, I think technically it was 13 days. It was a really cool event. So following on from that, we then went, well, you know what we're doing, let's try and move this around. And ironically, the whole concept of fragstock was the name of the event, was to give an alternative to reef stock. It was to bring sort of reef stock to smaller towns around the country. So it was a little bit ironic that the next one was done in Sydney, because that is where reef stock is, and Sydney reefers out there, you guys have got nothing to complain about. You've got some incredible reefing shows there. But that being said, we went to Bespoke Aquariums in Western Sydney, and that event was massive. We had over 500 people there. Wow. There was 15 vendors selling corals. There was other shops in store. There was line of people around the block waiting for it to open. It was massive.
The logistics of setting up a day like that, even at the small scale where you're expecting 50 people, it's still setting up frag tanks that are temporary and people having to bring in their corals. And you know how stressful it is when you go to the LFS and you buy that one frag and you're sitting with it in a bag strapped into the seatbelt of your car to bring it home. Think about that, but with 10 tanks worth of coral and 20 people to organize around it, it must like age you immensely to deal with the stress of that.
I'm actually 21 years old now. I'm much older than that. But thankfully, up until now, I have deliberately done it at coral shops or local fish shops, for a couple of reasons. One being they've got most of the logistics in place. They've got spaces where tanks can go. Some of them often have tanks and lighting. They've got things like water and bags and tills and some other boring but very important things like insurance and just like power and stuff like that, which are things that we can take for granted. A lot of people say, well, just do it at a hall. And you go, not many halls with nice wooden floors want to have, a couple of thousand litres of temporary salt water in there. We don't have the power outlets to run the heater or pump a light and whatnot on multiple tanks. So we deliberately did it at local fish shops around the country, and it's been fun. It's been a great success, but it's one of those things where I guess your success leads to the next thing. And I was fortunate enough to have the question asked of me of what would it take to bring something like reef stock, but probably a bit more like aquashella in America, where we wanted to combine marine and freshwater sides of the hobby together into one big aquarium expo.
Yeah.
To which I said, well, if we're going to do that, we're going to need to cater for a couple thousand people. If we're going to do it for a couple thousand people, it can't be at a local fish shop. It's got to be a third-party venue. It's a third-party venue. We're going to need money to hire it. We're going to need insurance. We're going to need staff. We're going to need marketing. We're going to need this. We're going to need that. We're going to need electricians.
Yeah.
Things piled up. So I kind of threw a few things out there, basically to try to scare them off. Say, look, we need all these things. It's too hard. Not going to happen. Thankfully, to which this person said, "Okay, sure. What else?" And I went, give me a minute to think about it.
Yeah, let's put a plan together.
I'd need a Porsche. No, I'm joking. Thankfully, yeah, they were serious. And then once I realized they were serious, we thought about it a bit more. We worked through it. And before you know it, this event here, Underwater Pet Expo, came to life.
Yeah.
Which is going to be at the Melbourne Showgrounds, which is obviously in Victoria, in Australia, 29th of February and 1st of March this year. So we're down to 26 days away now. It is a huge building. It's a 70 metre by 30 metre premises. So it's 2,100 square metres. We've got, I think about 35 vendors there. We've got international guests coming. We've got guests coming from Asia. We've got guests coming from Europe. We've got people from all across Australia coming. We've got some big CEOs of companies such as Aquaforest, Tunzi. We've got tickets for sale, pre-sale tickets now, and they're, despite still being almost a month away now, the pre-sale tickets are going really well. We've sold a few hundred pre-sale tickets, which it's a good sign because I know how these things work and everyone wants to buy their ticket at the last minute, which people I get, but for my sanity, if you can pre-book tickets just so we can organise staffing and catering and things, we want to make sure you're all fed and watered.
How much are the tickets?
They're $5.
$5.
Yeah.
For a full day of
absolutely
underwater pet. So we're saying freshwater, marine and reptile as a professional grade facility.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, so we've got $5 for adults, kids under 16 are free. That's a full day's entertainment, so from 9 AM to 5 PM. There's plenty of kids' activities there as well. So we've got colouring competitions, we've got a jumping castle, obviously a lot of live fish tanks for people to look at and just enjoy the day. There's food trucks there, coffee trucks there. So realistically, the event's targeted at people that don't have aquariums.
Yeah.
We're going to bring people that have aquariums in anyway, because if you're into aquariums like you and I are, and this is in your backyard, you're going to go. That's
absolutely,
that's common sense. But we're really trying to target people that don't have aquariums at all. Get them in for a cheap family day out. Basically, mum and dad, 3 kids come along for $10.
And inevitably get them booked, and then in a couple of months they'll have something like this in their living room.
That's the plan. I mean, I want people to come in and see things like this and fall in love and actually grow this hobby, because I'm sure I've been in the hobby not as long as many people would think, but about 8 years now. And despite the advancements in knowledge and technology, the advances of what we know about this hobby, it's still been a steady decline, particularly in Australia. And I can only put that down to what I see online is a lot of people struggling with it, making some bad choices, which cost them money or just breaks their heart when they lose a fish or a coral, and it understandably deters them from the hobby. Ultimately, that costs us all. The less people in the hobby, the less stores there are, the less support the Australian market gets. The less support the Australian market gets, the less chance of this hobby really existing for us, and then we have to import things from overseas, or we just can't buy a fish or a coral. That's the last thing I want. So the whole aim of this event really is just try and grow the hobby as a whole. Showcase what
educate how you can have this and how easy it can be.
Absolutely.
And I guess push some of that new knowledge that you're talking about, because there's certainly older ways of reefing and newer ways of reefing, and I think there is a noticeable difference in the success levels between people that do it in particular ways. Absolutely.
And not only just reefing, but even like with freshwater tanks, the advancements in freshwater tanks in the last even 5 years in the aquascape planted tanks is just mind-blowing, and I know nothing about them. But thankfully through this show I've had a bit of exposure to it. I'm hanging to set up a planted freshwater tank, because they are just absolute underwater gardens that are just beautiful bonsai pieces, and the fish escapes they do are just, it's a completely different path to reefing, but equally beautiful. So really keen to see how that comes along.
That's really exciting. I also really like these events in that it's a way to meet people that share a same interest and a same passion. You know, we're all part of all the Facebook groups, and you recognize names and profile pictures from that and the conversations you have people on those groups. But to meet people in person, and you can really build friendships and like the people that you've been chatting to online forever actually put a face to the name, and that's what I really enjoyed about the smaller events that you've run in the past, and I'm sure that will be amplified tenfold in the larger event, because you just have more and more people, and people flying in from other states as well.
Indeed.
So you just get the opportunity to I guess meet your heroes, meet your friends, and
just to meet your peers, just to I'm absolute as bad as it is anyone else, that our online persona doesn't always match our in-person persona. And if you're having a bad day and you jump on Facebook and you say something you probably wouldn't say in person, you're then tainted for life. Where the more that we can move away from as much, I work in IT, so don't get me wrong, I love computers, but the more that we can meet each other in person and get to actually chat face to face and realize that actually they're a pretty good guy, and we can hang out with them, swap frags, and before you know it, you're good reefing buddies. And I've got a number of groups from around Australia now that wherever I go, and thankfully I get to hang out at people's places, see their tanks, and meet some of their reefing buddies. Now we've got a group of friends, and we're sharing frags and shipping stuff interstate, and it builds this really nice little community that my heart would be truly warmed if I heard stories of that coming out at Underwater Pet Expo. It'd be fantastic.
I'm sure it absolutely will.
So at Underwater Pet Expo, it's not just vendors. We've also got, I've incorporated all the building blocks leading up to this, where we've had an event called Fragstock. We've got a Fragstock within Underwater Pet Expo, so it's not just multinational large businesses there showcasing their brand new skimmer or heater or something like that. We also have a dedicated space just for hobbyists that want to sell frags. We've made the entry price of that to be able to sell your frags as cheap as possible. I do still have a few of those spaces left, so if you're in the Melbourne or Victoria, or even if you're super keen and want to fly in and sell your frags, hit me up, because I do have a few spots left, which I'd love to see that packed to the absolute rafters full of people selling frags they've grown. That's something that one of the core mission statements from Fragstock was to try and bridge the gap between local fish shops and hobbyists. We'd seen a little bit of a divide in a little bit of just sort of hate towards backyarders against local fish shops and things like that, and ultimately everyone lost. So the idea there really was to put them together and get them working together. So yeah, you can be a backyarder growing corals, but you can supply your local fish shop rather than having people come over to your house, spending an hour of your time so they can pick up a $20 frag. You can take 60 frags into your local fish shop. They won't pay you the same price, you get a little bit less, but you sell 60 at a time, and you do it once Saturday morning and you're done.
Yeah.
That's been a successful, that's been an outcome that's been reached throughout the country with Fragstock, and I'm really keen to see that happen further with Underwater Pet Expo as well.
And I think the future of the hobby certainly is in frags and fragging, both from a sustainability perspective, but also just in a quality of coral perspective. So as someone that has both frags and wild caught corals in my tank, I can tell you that there's a lot to be said for tank hardy frags that are multi-generational and have spent a lot of time in artificial light in glass boxes. They grow faster, they're more resilient, and often the corals that are fragged by their very nature are the most desirable colours and things like that. Whereas wild colonies, it can be a gamble or a mixed bag, and the less we take off the reef, the better. So just the whole transition of the hobby into that fragging, it's going to help the environment, it's going to help the hobby in terms of the quality of the corals available for people's tanks. And in the long run, it's going to mean that we all have access to corals that look photoshopped when they're not, which I guess is what everyone ultimately wants. And often the reason that many people get into the hobby is they see a picture of this amazing tank or this amazing coral, and the first thing they ask themselves is that real?
Yeah.
Yes, it is, and you can have it, and we're getting closer and closer to making that reality for more people.
Most definitely.
Your journey with reefing. So
yeah, sure.
So I think, Sam, you mentioned you've been in the hobby for 8 years. and it started, I'm assuming, with a small tank and a pair of clownfish or something like that.
It's pretty similar. I guess I tell a little bit of a white lie, and that I tell a lot of people that I went straight into reefing, that I never had a freshwater tank, and it's technically a lie because I did actually have a small, I think it was like maybe a 9-litre freshwater tank. My brother-in-law became a manager of a local pet shop that was just opening, so on the grand opening we went down there to support him, and they had this nice little $50 setup, little acrylic box that you can put like a little shrimp or a small freshwater fish in. So we bought that just to, do the right thing by your family members, and we set it up on our kitchen bench. And my wife and I, we have our breakfast on our kitchen bench, and we found ourselves talking to the fish every morning and sort of going, yeah, this is pretty cool. Maybe, and this is where my addictive personality comes in, sort of going, maybe we could do a bit more with this fish tank thing.
Yeah.
And my wife was sort of thinking, maybe
go from 9 litres to 30 litres.
Yeah, well, she was probably thinking, maybe up to 80.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, cool, let's get like 1,000 litre tank. So I managed to convince her to come and have a look. We went back to my brother-in-law's pet shop and looked around and went, we've got to go to a real aquarium.
Yeah.
So we went to what I would call a real fish shop, which had both freshwater and marine. We went in there purely looking at freshwater, and then saw the beautiful colours of marine. And full disclosure, I did not even consider corals at that point in time. I just saw the marine fish and went, that's where it's at.
That's what, I mean, we're seasoned in the hobby, and we have a trained eye for, you probably noticed like that rick or that clam or that weird gonny in the back, or some specific piece of coral in my tank. Think back to when you started in the hobby, you don't notice any of that, or anytime you have kids over looking at your tank, they're most interested in the snail.
Yeah.
Not the $2,000 frag or the super colony that's taken you years to grow up. So the fact that, and that is the reality of our hobby, is what brings people into the hobby often is the simplest thing. It's the fish or the pair of clowns or something like that. And it was the same for me, and it's the same for you.
Yeah, I honestly cannot remember exactly which fish it was. I have a feeling it was a purple tang.
Yep.
And I saw the purple tang and I'm like, wow, we have to have this. The purple, the yellow, the patterns down the side, just the size of it. Because all the freshwater fish were like,
yeah, they're smaller and they're
in the pet shop.
They're usually not as bright as this.
Yeah, I know you can get crazy arowanas and stuff, but they weren't at this pet shop. They had, like little catfish and some like guppies and stuff, and I'm like, looks like food.
Yeah.
You see a big purple tang swimming around, and you're like, oh, that's got a presence.
Yeah.
So we started looking into it, going, well, if you want to have that tank, you really need to go sort of minimum 300, 400 litres. And I went, yeah, okay. So we had a look at that Reef 400. And I went, yeah, that's all right. And I went, if we're going to go this far, if we're going to spend this, we sort of got a bit of a quote, and it might come up to be $2,000, $3,000 for everything that we need to get going. And I went, never kept saltwater tanks before, and I did a quick bit of research online, and I went, everyone says how difficult it is, and I might not like it. Before we go spending a few $1,000s, maybe I'll just take a bit of a step back and we'll just go a bit easier. So at that point in time, I figured rather than trying to reinvent the wheel, I wanted to buy a tank that was a known quantity. Right. So I came across a second-hand Red Sea Max 130, which ticked all the boxes. Second-hand, it was cheap. It was already in pretty average condition. It was just an empty box, but the glass was already all scratched and stuff. I think the protein skimmer didn't work. So I couldn't really make it any worse, which was my big concern at that point in time. But it was cheap, it was small, and the best thing was that because it was a known quantity, I knew that if I Googled Red Sea Max blowing bubbles, I'd get someone saying, I've had that problem, do this, fixed.
Yeah.
And I just needed to reduce that learning curve as much as I could to get into it. And full disclosure, I even had this with my wife to say that I only want this tank for a few months. I just want to see if I like it, if I can do it, and if we want to go bigger.
Yeah.
So we had that tank for about 3 or 4 months before we said, yeah, all right.
We can do this.
We can do this. Let's go all out. Yeah. So when I saw Dave at Deer Park, I shopped around all fish shops in Melbourne at the time. I looked at big Red Seas because I had success with the Red Sea Max. I had a look at the big Red Sea that didn't have reefers then, the Red Sea Max, like 650, I think it was.
Yeah.
The cost blew my mind. We started talking like 8-10 grand, and that was with T5s, and I was going to change it to LEDs, and things started getting scary. We had a look at some Cades, which were really tempting, but much as I love the look of the open top tank, they scare me a bit. I don't know why. It's just I'm not very.
It defies physics to just have this tiny strip of silicon holding back hundreds of liters of water. But
it definitely scares me, and also
it hasn't leaked yet.
It's not too bad with the silicon. I'm a brute when I clean the tank, so like I splash water over it. And, open top tanks don't work for me. So that sort of put the cave in question for me. And then I came across David Deer Park, and he said, yeah, well, if you're going to spend that kind of money, you probably should go custom. We can build whatever you want then. So we started talking about what we'd get for custom, and Dave, I could tell pretty much straight away he was the kind of guy I was going to gel with.
Yeah.
It's exactly what anyone wants to find at a local fish shop. They want to find someone that's not trying to oversell, not trying to sell them stuff they don't need, but also not trying to convince them into thinking that something's going to work just because it's cheaper when it's not going to work. Dave was a straight shooter and said, you absolutely have to have this. You can, or you don't have to have this. So your price range ends up between, you know, 6,000 and 9,000, depending on how fancy you want to go. So I was like, yeah, cool, let's do it. So we built a 6 by 2.5, so yeah, 6 long, 2.5 deep and 2 foot tall tank. That was built by Billy at Starflyer Aquatics. Dave designed the cabinet and some. Billy built the tank. We put that in, it'd be 6.5 years ago now, I think. It took a while to get built and get the money, source all the equipment. And the tank's been running ever since. It is in its, what I'd call probably its golden phase now, where it's pretty well autopilot. I've done a lot of work to make things as automated as possible, but when you've got a tank that's 6.5 years old, it's kind of seen all of the disasters it's going to see. Yeah. If you've got through them at that point in time, it's kind of built a bit of resilience to it. So it's got the odd aptasia here and there, and it's got a little bit of algae here and there, but all in all, things are cranking along. It's chewing through media in the calcium reactor. It just grows and grows and grows. My big sort of showpiece coral Medalis in the middle, every time I clean the glass, I'm knocking off branches like this because they just grow enough for the magnet cleaner to hit. It breaks back about that far, you end up with this huge colony of Dallas.
Yep.
Give it another week, clean the glass, crack, another big bit comes off. It just grows ridiculously quick.
I mean, that's everyone's goal, right? Like, it's the problem that everyone wants to have is, oh, my corals grow so fast that I break them when I clean the glass.
It's a funny one, you know, because it's a good problem to have, but it can also be a pain too in that Dallas being a big staghorn coral, it's a fairly thick branch and it tends to grow out like this. You end up with a lot of shading.
Yeah.
You have a lot of trouble with flow because it's dense. Like it's a solid bush of staghorn. So yeah, you have a bit of trouble with flow and light and all that. But you just have to sort of adjust your goals a little bit and realize that at the start it was about getting through the ugly stage, and then it was about getting things to grow. Then it's about getting things to color up, and then you just kind of like, I'm just happy to see things interact. And we were talking before when newsflash got a tour of Marcus's tank coming up on my channel. We were talking about the bonsai work you have to do in your tank to keep things from fighting. I've got pretty much, I must admit, I don't have things growing anywhere near as closely as you do here, and I have the same issue, but obviously at a much smaller scale because mine are not that close.
I'm in there with little clippers and tweezers, bonsai. You're in there with garden trimmers.
Pretty much, yeah. I wait until normally if there's a branch of this and a branch of that, and they start getting close, and then this will start growing over that, I'll just break it off down at the base. That seems to do the trick, but I mean, it's just the different phase of the hobby. But the tanks, it's been wet now for 6.5 years. In that time, it's had a couple of spills. We've had like power outages, and the siphon break didn't work, so it just like flooded the sump. So things don't live forever, particularly wood and salt water and stuff. So rather than wait until things get that bad that it splits and puts 1,000 litres of salt water in my lounge room, which would pretty much be the end of reef keeping for me in my house. I'd rather, almost like a sports star, let them retire when they're at the top of their game, rather than wait till they're a bench player. So don't get me wrong, my tank's not at the top of its game, but I'd rather take it down on my terms than wait till a disaster.
And then you can be excited about taking it down because undoubtedly you'll have a plan for what you're going to do to replace it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not taking it down to get out of the hobby. I'm taking it down for a smallish upgrade. I don't want to go to like a 5,000 litre tank. One, I don't have money or the space to do it. I also don't have the desire to do that much work on a reef tank. I'll do a slight upgrade because it seems silly pulling a tank down and put one up the same size. So I'll go to an 8 by 3 by probably about a 2.2 high, which volume-wise ends up being a fairly large upgrade, but looking at it, it kind of looks about the same. The only other changes that I'll make is I'll move away from the wood-based cabinet. I'll go to a extruded aluminium cabinet. Just because the wood's the main thing that's stressing me about my tank now is that there are some parts of it that have been exposed to water, which makes me think if they start swelling and get uneven, that it's putting stress on the glass box and the silicon joints. It's the sort of stuff that keeps you up at night.
You just don't want to be thinking about that stuff in the middle of the night.
Exactly, where I know if I can build an extruded aluminium frame that's over-engineered to bilio, that
it'll outlive you.
It's not going to. In fact, the best thing about it is it's not going to bend or come out of shape or swell. The best thing is then when I decide to downgrade or upgrade or do something different with the tank, I can reuse the material. So I can shorten it up and have a smaller tank use the same cabinet. So from a sustainability point of view, I'm trying to justify it that way. But the reality is I just like to look at the extruded aluminium.
That's good. What about in terms of when you are sort of starting over but with the same similar footprint of tank? Are you going to reuse all the equipment in the sump, or are you going to change your reefing methodology at the same time?
So one of the conditions of upgrading the tank is when we moved into our house, which we moved in about 9 years ago, my wife and I both hated the carpet in the house, but we just bought the house. We didn't have money to replace all the flooring. So one of the conditions of a tank upgrade is that if the tank comes down, we're putting new flooring in. So despite having to taking one tank down and putting the other tank up, I need to have the space free for a few months while I get flooring. So I will be stripping the tank down and putting it into IBCs, the parts that I want to keep anyway.
So you're not going to start just purely from frags. You will keep bits of your existing rocks and coral.
I will start from frags of some of the corals I have now. Some that I absolutely love. I will probably try, as I'm bringing it down, I'll probably try to move a lot of those pieces on, just because the likelihood of them surviving, let alone thriving in an IBC, are probably hit and miss.
And I mean, if you've had the coral grown for 8 years, it might be time to try with something else. You probably ordered it, so you want to grow something else to be that big for 8 years.
It's one of those things. You always want what you can't have. So I mean, we're talking before with your tank, was saying you at this point in time with this tank, Chalice just don't want to work with you. It's hard to believe because we were also joking. You got SPS, LPS, and NPS thriving in here, but for some reason Chalice just don't like you. Same way, I have exactly the same problem with my tank, where some species thrive and you can drop a bit under the rock at the back, half covered in sand, and it'll grow up out of the sand like no tomorrow. Where another piece, you'll treat it like your firstborn and think will just keep proceeding and dying on you. So I'll mix things up a little bit just to see if I can achieve the corals that I couldn't achieve the first time around.
And are you going to stick with metal halides and Kessel, which I know your current tank runs on?
I'll definitely be sticking with metal halides and Kessel lights. Because of the extra dimensions, I'll probably have to add a couple more Kessels. I'm half tempted into go. I did have T5 over the tank as well for a little while. Seeing how amazing your tank's looking, it's put an extra few coins into the Team T5, which is got me a bit inspired again. So it'll either be halides and LEDs or halides, LEDs, and T5s.
I'd go all three.
and I probably can if I do it again. When I had all three in my current tank, because it was an afterthought, originally it was going to be all LED. And then I added the halides, and then I added the T5, so it was becoming a bit of a Frankenstein sort of mount up there. Whereas if I decide to go with this way, be able to do something nice like you've done there, purpose-built fixture, to me it's almost as important how neat the cabinet and the hood and everything looks as much as it does in the tank. I see a lot of tanks where inside the light strip is beautiful, but it looks like a science lab around, and they've got hoses on the ground and towels hanging over the corner and stuff, and you just like it just OCD in me just detracts away from the beauty inside the tank. So
it goes a long way on the wife acceptance factor. If the tank can appear like it's a piece of furniture in the house as opposed to a garage experiment that you brought into the living room.
Absolutely. And I'm fortunate enough that my wife allows me to have what was our study is now my fish room, and that's where I've got another 5 or 6 tanks.
Yeah.
Where I am allowed to have like a science lab in there. I can leave junk everywhere. Those tanks, if people come over, that door stays closed because we don't really want kids in there. I've got some predator fish and stuff. Don't want hands in those tanks. So that door stays closed, and they can all just look at our beautiful living room tank, which is our real display. But yeah, the frag tanks and the predator tanks and some of the breeding tanks and stuff can all be hidden away. So yeah, that main display, it's got to look the part. So yeah, with that in mind, seeing how beautiful these fixtures are, I'd be pretty tempted to go T5 around again.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, Underwater Pet Expo, 29th of Feb, 1st March, Melbourne Showgrounds, 9 AM to 5 PM. Whether you're into marine, freshwater, ponds, come down, check it out. Even if you're into reptiles, whilst it's not at our venue, there is a reptile show on the Saturday at the Melbourne Showgrounds as well, and we've done a deal with them. If you buy entry into their show, you can get into ours for free. Ours is only $5 anyway, but if you want to save $5 and you want to see both, go check out the reptile show first. Should be a really great day's entertainment. I'd really appreciate it and like to meet all you guys there.
Yeah, and I'm going to be there. I know a bunch of well-known people within the hobby are going to be there, so come down to meet us all.
All personalities will be there for sure.
You've got international attendees.
Yeah.
Who's coming from overseas?
Yeah, so we've got Axel Tons from Tunzi, obviously, coming from Germany. We've got, he's going to shoot me because I'm going to pronounce it wrong, but Serwin from Aquaforest, CEO of Aquaforest, coming out. We've got a couple of, again, showing my complete ignorance in the freshwater side, we've got a couple of international aquascapers, freshwater aquascapers coming out. I think one's from Malaysia and one's from Indonesia. We've got some manufacturers coming from Italy. We've got manufacturers coming from China, hopefully, depending on the coronavirus, which is not one of the things you think you'd be dealing with when setting up a reefing expo, but such as 2020. So it truly is a wholly international affair. And then domestically, we've got people coming from Perth, Sydney, Queensland, and obviously Victoria. So
awesome.
Really good showing.
And what I love about this is that it's an Australian expo being organised in Australia by Australians, and we're bringing the international crowd to us. Which is amazing. So we come and support the hobby, fly into Melbourne, it'll be a great weekend.
It's spot on what you say there. It blows my mind that, we're Australia. We do reefing better than anyone.
Yeah.
We don't need other countries telling us how to do reef shows or aquarium shows full stop.
Yeah.
We know what we're doing. We can do it. So let's make it happen.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Sam, for coming.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'm looking forward to maybe doing another one. We'll use your tank as the backdrop for the next video. I'll come to your place. And
I'm super keen to get the video of this tank up on my channel on Parker's Reefs. And yeah, absolutely always welcome down to my place to come and get one last footage of my tank before, once we get through this Pet Expo, I'll have a little bit more time and mental capacity on my hands to start planning the new tank. So I've probably got maybe another 6 to 12 months of that tank being wet, and then we'll start getting on the new one.
Yeah, well, we'll make 2020 the year of collaboration in the Australian reef scene. So we'll get, I think, a lot more collaboration through events like Underwater Pet Expo and the Australian reefing YouTube scene, of which we're both part of. But I know a lot of other people out there as well that are keen to be part of this. And let's all get on board and build the Australian scene. So this has been fantastic. Thanks everyone for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. Also, like and subscribe to Sam Parker, that's Parker's Reef on YouTube. And my name is Marcus, this is Sam, and you've been watching the Reef Nerd YouTube channel. Bye for now. Hi everyone. Shit, how do I start my videos? My name is Marcus and you're watching the Reef Nerd. Yeah, that's right.